Kalikumutima and Company Advocates, translating visions into reality.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, a good evening. Thank you so much for joining us as we augment discourse and have a conversation on condominium investments in Uganda. And we'll be exploring the context, the regulatory shortfalls, and the opportunities. My name is Howard Mwesigwa, and I have the humbling privilege of leading the department at Kalikumutima and Company Advocates on energy, environment, and sustainability. And I would like to welcome you warmly. And in the first place, I would like to extend our apologies to you. We had undertaken to start at exactly 7, but we began about 14 minutes or so late, and we apologize for that. It was due to some technical glitches, but we are glad that we are finally here, and we're glad that you took off time to join us as we again be part of this conversation. And I promise it's going to be very insightful, it's going to be very enlightening, and I hope that you will enjoy it. At the end, we'll have a few minutes for some questions. Please do prepare some questions for our speakers tonight. And so to just give you a quick introduction of our speakers, in the first place, we have our very own host, Our C.E.P Deo Kalikumutima, who is the Chief Executive Partner here at Kalikumutima and Company Advocates, but he also has a great wealth of experience in real estate law and advisory, among others. But we also have Mrs. Lucy Kaitesi Wamimbi, who again is a property consultant and is joining us as well on this X space. And she has a degree in psychology, and she has worked in sales and marketing and advising for over 15 years. So you have 15 years there speaking to you tonight, but she's also a real estate professional, especially in light of this X space, and she's been doing that for 10 years now, and she's been representing developers and agencies in the context of real estate development, but she's also married with 3 children, and so we're really delighted to have her again beyond work time and family time. She has decided to join us. We do not take that lightly. We also have architect Verna Mbabazi, who has been an architect for over 2 decades now, and previously she worked with the National Housing and Construction Company Limited, but she also served with the Kampala City Council Authority as a councillor representing the architects, and she's a member of the Architects Registration Board, and she's also the chairperson of the Urbanism Cluster with the Uganda Society of Architects. And so she is also an architect, of course, in that regard, in private practice, and she's married as well and a mother of 4. So ladies and gentlemen, you can see that the panel is well constituted, and we are going to delve right away in the discourse. And in the first place, I would like to invite our very first speaker, C.E.P Deo Kalikumutima, to just give us the context in light of condominium investments in Uganda, to just paint for us a picture what the landscape looks like at present, and the rationale for our engagement, very timely engagement this evening. As you know, in the past couple of weeks, the condominium question has been a major component of the media, and about the 13th of August, we had an inspection being undertaken by the Honorable Minister for Housing, Honorable Pasis Namuganza, together with a number of other dignitaries as well, and they made certain findings, and C.E.P Deo Kalikumutima was part of the party that was undertaking that inspection on behalf of the diaspora owners in that sense, and he was also part of the party that made certain findings, and we would love to hear from him what he found on ground. And so I think that would be a very good place for us to get this conversation going. So without any further ado, I would like to invite C.E.P Deo Kalikumutima to set us off. Council, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Howard, Mark, wow, Mwesigwa, and to the wonderful ladies who have joined us today. More importantly, our listeners, both in the diaspora and in Uganda, good evening, good morning, and maybe good night somewhere. It's a Friday evening here in Kampala, so Howard, you'll allow me to go a bit unconventional and let off some steam. It's been a long week, a long day. One, allow me not that this is not personal, this is not political. I thank God, by the way, that I don't belong to any political party in Uganda. So this is purely business. Purely business. How can we do better? For me, this is a reality check. Not pointing fingers, but addressing the scenario or the situation as it is. Like you said, for the last couple of weeks, maybe months, there has been a discussion on the condominium question. Now, for me, as a believer, as a Christian, even when there's a problem, I look at the positive. Even when there are challenges, I must quickly look out for the positive. Now, before I go into my story, I'm telling my story here. Before I go into the introduction, allow me delve into the context and specifics, this particular inspection that you talked about. Kalikumutima and Company Advocates has been privileged to represent diaspora interests in Uganda. To be specific, UNA, the Uganda North America Association, the Uganda-UK Trade Convention, to mention but a few. But we also represent interests locally. Now, our clients invest in Uganda. To be precise, the diaspora invests millions of dollars annually. Actually, the last I checked, it was over $500 million. You may not know, you can go and check the statistics. So it is only fair that in every transaction, we look out for value. I'll be touching at a later stage the role that we play as a firm and maybe Kalikumutima Deo. We must do our best to ensure that our clients get value. So every time some of our developers go to the diaspora, they present, I need to be as polite as I can be. I don't call it hot air. They have invested a lot in graphics. For me, they present cosmetics that are not a true reflection of what they have on the ground. And please don't get me wrong, the real estate sector, the housing sector, the condominium aspect of the housing sector is very, very lucrative. And I know the wonderful ladies, Lucy and Mbabazi, will speak to that. They will talk about the opportunities and everything. So the opportunities are there. But we have a few elements that are distorting what is supposed to be a good thing. I normally use an analogy of expecting a puppy and you presented a rat. That's why I'll overemphasize, you'll allow me overemphasize the issue of value. So as a result, we have many clients who are disgruntled, who are unsettled, who are disoriented because they have not received value for their money. When we did this inspection, maybe before I rush into it, the diaspora community, among others, and local owners petitioned the IGG. Previously, some had petitioned the Honorable Minister of State for Housing, Honorable Pasis Namuganza, and they sought administrative intervention. This is one of the remedies that I will address later. So that is how we end up with the IGG, who was kind enough to host the owners and the developers and the media. It was unfortunate, but I thank God that it happened because the discussion started. Back home, we call it sleeping on one's rights. People had challenges, but they were not speaking up. Finally, they did speak up. The IGG tasked her office and Ministry of Lands to investigate. That's why the inspection was done. I must report that what we saw on the ground was appalling, unfortunate, but there's still a lot of hope, and I'll explain why later. Now, in most of the sites that we visited, and I'm not going to list the developers here, because some of them have taken it so personal. But they know, you know yourselves, you do. The basics, common places are not in place. Children play areas are not in place. The accesses, poor. We are talking about shoddy works, issues of structural integrity, mechanical and electrical issues, plumbing. You have in some places sewage spilling, waste management. Now I know, Howard, you're very passionate about the environment, just like I am. And I hope that before we go to sleep tonight, you'll touch the aspects of the environment. Waste management is very pertinent. I'll shortly touch the issue of sustainability. And we all know that with sustainability, we are talking about continuity. So we moved around all these properties, and it was sad. It was sad, but for me, this is an opportunity. In this very unfortunate incident, where these developers are going to pay, because I'll talk about remedies, we learn our lessons and we must do better. So the inspection was done. Subsequently, the IGG called for a stakeholder meeting. I'm glad that this report is out. Without pointing fingers, we have had challenges with reports in our country, but this one came out pretty fast. And we hope that it will not stop at the report. In the petition that was presented, one of the prayers was for investigation, 2, cancellation of occupation permits, revocation of investment licenses, prosecution. We hope all these will be actualized, not just to send a message, but to put things right. It is my humble and considered opinion that it is incumbent on every Ugandan. Every Ugandan has a duty to do things right, a duty to follow the law. Later I'll be talking about compliance, and I'm sure Architect Mbabazi will also talk about it. We have these duties, and we must be alive to the realities of the day. So, like I said, it's purely business. We have to get value. Unfortunately for our diaspora clients, they come in for a week or two, and they have to run back to look for money. They need bread on the table. They are hoodwinked. And how I can summarize that predicament is the developers being too profit-minded. In the 21st century, earlier I was humbled to attend with you the CEO forum, where we joined the captains of industry. In the 21st century, some of the key drivers are globalization, technology, the environment. You must do certain things in a certain way. You recall we were talking about sustainability. Now, how are you going to have sustainability when you're putting up a structure that is developing cracks within a year? I know Architect Mbabazi is going to talk about the defects liability period. Now, and I hope the developers are on. We shared this link because we also need them to tell their story. This is not a court of law. We'll be touching this evening the aspect of risk, both operation and construction. And under there is the issue of maintenance. The owners who buy subsequently are supposed to maintain. Once the developer hands over to you, you're supposed to maintain. So yes, we do have owners who are also not doing their part. But again, from what we have seen, and allow me to use another analogy, if I buy a car that has a faulty engine and gearbox, what am I going to maintain? And maybe and I will request at a later stage Architect Mbabazi to advise, is the defects liability period of 1 year enough? Let's assume that it is. What state? I'm not an architect, but we are looking at common sense and logic here. What state should the building be in? Should it have cracks? I don't think so. So that is just to give us context. Where are we coming from? What do we want from this discussion? Because I'm going to tell you, listeners, this discussion is continuing. Today we are talking about condominium. Tomorrow we will talk about environment. We are going to touch the different aspects of life because sustainability cuts across. It's in business, it is in political, it cuts across. We must ensure that there is continuity. That's why we are having this discussion, not only to skirt around the problem, but talk about the solutions. How can we do better? The regulators have shied away from this discussion. I hope they are online. They were not able to come on. I'm not going to point fingers, but there's clearly a gap here. There's a lot more that we can do. There is something being done, do not get me wrong, but we can surely do better. Now, to the introduction. Many say that the question of condominium is new in Uganda. No, it is not. The law came into place in the year 2001. That is approximately 13 years ago. Well, it depends on what you understand by... 2023. Sorry, I beg your pardon. So it depends on what you understand. 23 years ago, I've been corrected. By new. Is 23 years ago new? No, it's not. It's not. But I will note that Uganda is a developing country and a beautiful one indeed. And I encourage all of you to invest here. Notwithstanding these small challenges, you will be guided continuously on how to do better. I'll later talk about the role of the farm. So we do have the law in place. And I thank God that we have embraced this as Uganda because it is an opportunity to embrace sustainability. Like I said earlier, the real estate sector is lucrative. The housing sector indeed is. And there are enormous opportunities that the two ladies will talk about. We currently have a housing deficit of about 2.4 million. And to be precise, in the urban, it's about 210,000. So the opportunities are there. With urbanization, a growing middle class, the surge of expatriates we are talking about, oil, rent, people are making billions from. So the opportunities are there. But how do we dive in? Do you just jump in there because there's an opportunity? No. Earlier we talked about, before today's discussion, we were emphasizing market analysis. Before you dive in, understand the market that you're going to deal with. And I hope these developers adjust to this. Understand not only your competition, but your client. Like I said, we have 3 drivers, among others today, that are key. Globalization, environment, technology. The customer, the client, is very pertinent. You must understand their needs and preferences and tailor your services accordingly. Are we doing this marketing analysis? I don't think it's being done right. Can it be done? Yes. That is why I'm going to overly emphasize, and I'm glad that we have professionals here. We need to use professionals. You think you're saving money by not engaging Deo, then you come to me when it's gone bad, and now how do we do this? Prevention is better than mitigation. I encourage us to focus on prevention. We must engage the professionals early enough. Risk. Are we doing our risk analysis right? Or are we just diving in there? So, I know we started late, but allow me just 5 more minutes. Then I have to be a gentleman, or at least pretend to be one. The ladies, our dear guests, have to talk to us. Allow me quickly go to the role of Kalikumutima, the farm and maybe the person. I'll quickly touch, I'm going to talk about due diligence, very briefly compliance because the professionals are here, then risk management. I'll start with due diligence. In life today, you must do due diligence about everything. You must do due diligence about your partner, about the church you go to. You must do due diligence about the food that you eat. Literally speaking, about the person who's going to drive you. So in business, you must do due diligence. Because in this, you discover a lot. Now, we have presentations that have been shared, but briefly, this block of isolated units that are separately owned is not sitting in air. It is sitting on land. One, you must carry out a land search. Yes, it's done at the land office, but for me, that is not enough. You must appreciate the history on that file. You must go to the ground. Engage a surveyor, land surveyor, to ascertain the acreage for you, to ascertain that this is the right parcel. We have a very unfortunate incident that we've been dealing with where a diaspora client constructed a block on a neighbor's parcel. And the neighbor watched on. After 1 year, neighbor comes up and says, hey, who are you? What are you doing on my land? And the client says, but you looked on for 1 year. So you must engage a surveyor to go to the ground, ascertain the acreage, ascertain the boundaries. Engage a land valuer. What is the value of this land? Engage your architect. Engage a structural engineer. Engage a quantity surveyor. Again, architect Mbabazi will go into the intricacies. Engage these professionals from the tick. We have shared a checklist and we have one on the Ministry of Lands website too. Tick box. The professionals that you must engage and why. Then you have a detailed report. I must appreciate the firm that I serve as the chief servant. I'm the chief servant at Kalikumutima and Company Advocates. We are a pool of professionals. We have attorneys, valuers, surveyors as part of the firm. Engagers will go to the ground and give you a full report. Now, once your due diligence is done and in order, then you go back to the table. Have your negotiation done. The paperwork is done the right way. But again, in the paperwork, you must be as keen as you can be. Proper description of the property. Is it a lease? Is it Milo? Is it freehold? What is the acreage? How many square meters? Again, in the inspection, you realize what we saw on the ground is not in sync with what is on the titles or what is presented in the paperwork. Howard is told that he has bought 50 square meters, for example. On the ground, he has 40. How will you discover this in 2 weeks if you don't engage professionals? So the paperwork must be done right. Proper identification of the parties, proper description. The terms have to be as clear as possible. The consideration, that is the monetary value, has to be clear. The installments. Now, the common places, the details, have to be in that agreement. We have many clients complaining about swimming pools. Oh, they told me there's a swimming pool. Now we don't even have a pond. That must be clear. You must confirm that it is on the ground. It must be documented. Please note that this is business. They are not doing you a favor. Quid pro quo. They are not doing you a favor. Value for value. It's that simple. Then, why I insist on professionals, and again, Architect Mbabazi will follow through on this. This agreement is supposed to have accompanying documents. The drawings, drawn up by a professional, signed, stamped. And the drawings that they attach and give you or annex, hello? The drawings that they attach or annex must be the same drawings that were presented to the approving authority. Many a times you're given a drawing, but it must be the same. And I will request Architect Mbabazi to talk about this extensively. And you appreciate why it must be the same. Why it has to be attached. it speaks to what you have bought. Now, let me quickly go to compliance. One of the key roles that we play as a firm is compliance. On acquisition, to investigate and confirm or verify that the developer who's selling to you, or the first buyer, because now we have first, second, third, but in this scenario, let me touch the developer, was compliant from day one. They have an occupation permit. They have all the drawings, structural, architectural, fully endorsed. We check that. Then for the investors who are starting this business, we take you through step by step to make sure that you comply with each stage that architect Mbabazi is going to take us through. Fortunately, the architects here, they're the ones who come up with these drawings. So she's better placed to talk about the architectural drawings, the condominium plan, who approves it, why does it go to the vetting committee of Department of Housing. The vetting committee just verifies, it does not approve. The approval is done by the controlling authority in Kampala. For example, it's done by KCCA. And again, I must note that not every city has a controlling authority. She will explain why. Now, we make sure there is compliance through all those stages. Now, let me quickly touch the issue of risk management. A good businessman or woman should not be worried about risk. Actually, the higher the risk, the sweeter the what? The returns. But you must manage your risk appetite accordingly. Do your risk management, your planning. You should be able to identify the risk, analyze it, manage it, put in place measures. In the condominium investments, we have several risks. Financial. Are these investors able to access with ease finances? What is their level of liquidity? I thank God that some of the clients that we serve, like Stanbic Bank, Centenary Bank, Housing Finance Bank, Equity Bank, Post Bank, have packages for not only the diaspora but even the local clients. They are able to fill this financial gap. But even for our esteemed clients, we must re-emphasize that they need to do due diligence. And I believe that they do, because I'm sure they don't want to deal with frauds and dishonest entities. We have environmental risks, which I know you're going to talk about. I earlier alluded to construction and operating risks. We have the materials being expensive, maintenance issues, different what? Risks. I'll not talk about political. Then we have economic risks, volatility of the economy. We have inflation. Fortunately, now it's stable. Interest rates that are always fluctuating. So you must plan accordingly. If you're going to invest in condominiums here, in housing or real estate, you must plan, because it's not static. You must be alive. You must do your situation analysis. Lastly, for now, let me just re-emphasize the issue of sustainability. And this is an appeal as a human being to every Ugandan and non-Ugandan, and not just touching condominium, housing or real estate. We must ensure continuity. Why? The resources that we have on earth are not sufficient. So, because of the limited resources, we must ensure optimum utilization of these resources. We must ensure sustainability. We are not going to, these funny stories of the West wants to kill all Africans. That is not going to solve the world problems. Have an extinct race. No. We can still live on Earth Today we're talking about One Earth. But put in place the necessary measures. I'll summarize the real estate sector, housing, condominium, very good investments, very good. Some challenges, yes, but that shouldn't be a worry. The opportunities are many. Like I noted, there's a deficit. But before you dive in, you should do your situation analysis. You should do your market analysis. You should do your risk analysis. You must engage professionals. I want to thank Kalikumutima and Company Advocates. You have taken it upon yourselves to fill the information gap. If you go to our social media handles, we are talking about something every day. So I must commend you, not because I want a salary increment, but because you're doing an exceptional job to fill the information gap. Many people don't know their rights. Many people don't know that they should not build in a wetland. Howard, today I'm not going to bore you with the talk on frogs and monkeys and what. I know that is your part, environment that I'll surely leave to you. I thank you for now. Our dear listeners, sorry we delayed to come on, but we are here now and we are going to have a long discussion. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Councillor Deo Kalikumutima, for giving us such a comprehensive introduction, but also in giving us such a huge head start, again, in light of the context to the challenge of condominium investments in Uganda, but also why we are where we are today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring on board Architect Verna to just bring in to just add really a bit on the introduction, on the context, but also to share with us the perspective of an architect when it comes to condominium investments in Uganda. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners. Well, Deo said good morning, good night, and yes, all over the world. We're happy that you're listening in. Once again, my name is Verna. I have had an opportunity to work for a developer. I have been on the political wing of local government, a bit of central government regulation, advocacy, and private practice. So I think I have almost like 360-degree appreciation of the challenge we have. But for those who are not familiar with what condominiums are, in a simple way, is just to say that you subdivide a building and get titles for each unit. You divide a building and get titles for each unit, because before this act, you would not own a building. You'd own the land and everything on it. And so now the condominium comes and Condominium Property Act says, no, you can even own a unit within a building. So that's what it is. And there has to be a building to begin with. So how is this building developed? That's a whole different topic. We have our Building Control Act and all the checks and balances on how the building is built is there. The Condominium Property Act is just a management tool to say that, okay, for this building that is already built, hopefully according to the right procedures and processes, how do we divide it, manage the different owners? So it's very important to get the building right, very important. And that's where the professionals come in. First of all, to get development permission, we know where you can and cannot build. I mean, for houses that were being demolished, I felt sad. Because if they had contacted a professional, hopefully, they would never have, sunk their life savings into the wrong place, more or less. So development permission, and then building permission, building permission and all the checks and balances there. Do you have an approved plan? Do you have professionals checking the construction as it's going on? And has it been substantially completed? Because there was a question of developments not being completed. That one falls under the Building Control Act. And there are all the checks and balances if the professionals are engaged. Just quickly to say, Deo was talking about cracks. Now, cracks in buildings, for example, there are some that are structural. And there are some that are so terrible that the building is even condemned, which means that nobody's supposed to be in there and it should be taken down. But then there are these normal cracks, which are like surface cracks, where wood meets brick. Then we put what they call an architrave. If you notice your doors, always there's a crack between wood and brick. So you put an architrave. So there are those surface cracks that shouldn't scare a person. Now, again, the professional will be able to tell you that this is a structural one and this one is just surface. So anyway, all those things. And in the Condominium Act of 2001, and by the way, it's readily available online. You can even go to the Uganda, I think, Legal Information Institute. There are 3 key people. First of all, you need a registered surveyor. A registered surveyor is mentioned explicitly in the Act. And is there to say that the structure shown on the plan is within the external surface boundaries. There is a colleague of mine who, in good faith, bought a unit. I put in the anticipation and hope that he would get a title, only to find that the building fell half in another person's plot. So there was absolutely no way the title could come out, and yet he had paid his money. So registered surveyor, very important. They talk about a registered, an architect registered under the Architects Registration Act, 1996. Very important because we are the ones who actually subdivide the building. A surveyor knows how to subdivide land, but the architect will subdivide the building and make sure that what is described in your title is what you've actually bought. And then the local authority is important also, because they are the ones who actually certify that this building, this structure was built according to plan, because that ultimately is the role of the local authority. The professionals sometimes just assist. Yes, and about the off-plan sales. The off-plan sales are the ones that seem to be causing a lot of confusion. It is allowed for in the Act. They call it a phased condominium, but it is regulated. So the question is, this plan you bought, this development you bought off-plan, was it built according to the Building Control Act? And the way you financed it and everything, is it according to the Condominium Property Act? And so I will just conclude by saying that sometimes, like he was saying, people come 2 weeks and they go. We are here as professionals to serve the country, but we can only serve you if you ask to be served. But if not, I sometimes see things go wrong, but I can't say much because I'm not the architect on record, for example. And so many of these challenges would have been avoided if the acts were followed. But otherwise, it's a beautiful concept. Land is not getting any bigger, yet the population is doubling, tripling. We have no way to go but condominium. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Architect Verna, for sharing with us that perspective from an architect for the last 10 years. And I must add, actually 20, my apologies on that, 22 decades. And so I'm going to be coming back with a few questions, but at this juncture I would also like to remind the audience that we'll be coming back to pick some questions from you, so please do note them down. But I also like to, at this point in time, welcome Lucy to share with us the perspective of real estate consultant who has been doing this for a very long time. And so we just need to hear from you again, just contributing on the introduction or the context that we understand, but also on the aspect of the opportunities, because we've had so many requirements, as the architect has mentioned, Verna here. But is it still worth it? And Councillor Deo mentioned that in the beginning as well, making mention and alluding to the shortfall when it comes to housing, the 2.4 million, and then the over 200,000 in the urban areas. So statistically, there seems to be opportunities, but from your experience in the industry, in the sector, in the field, is it really true that there are opportunities? Because there seem to be hurdles on finding consensus between the developers, the investors, the regulators. There seem to be a lot of hurdles, but navigating all that, are there still opportunities? And in your experience, how can we navigate those hurdles, or how can investors navigate those hurdles to be able to tap into the opportunities that they are?
All right. Good evening to our listeners. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share this time with you. Are there opportunities? There's always opportunities. Deo mentioned the housing deficit of 2.4 million. But what this means is basically we're in need of housing. There's not enough housing. There's not enough buildings to go around, especially of the affordable kind. So when we look at what developers are trying to meet, they're trying to meet this statistic. How they try and meet the statistic is what is I think, a discussion that we're having now. This is what has led to this discussion, is what is the market asking for? If the statistic is there, who are the buyers? What are they interested in buying? What is the need that they're trying to meet other than shelter? What can you provide as a developer to try and meet this need? The opportunities are many. It depends on who you want to target. The capacity for somebody to buy an apartment is all dependent on how much income they're earning. So given the statistics, many of our developers are trying to meet the affordable housing need. Everybody would like to have, at least culturally, we were mentioning before that everybody would like to at least own a property once in their lifetime. There are those who have the opportunity to own several homes in their lifetime, those that are buying to occupy, those that are buying for investment purposes. Now, when you look at an investor or a developer coming into the market, they're obviously going to look at a location which is, popular, has easy access to amenities, close to schools, close to shopping centers, close to health facilities. The opportunities to be able to provide housing in areas that are close to these amenities are many. Now, at the end of the day, if you're buying, you're going to look for those very, very same amenities. There's opportunities for you to purchase something for your need. Are you a young man in need of a one-bedroom apartment? Are you married, looking to start a family, in need of a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment? Are you a retired person who's tired of living on a large piece of land? You'd like to buy a nice penthouse overlooking a nice view? The opportunities are there. All these needs have to be met. Then are you an investor? Are you interested in, I think Deo mentioned that he's representing several interested parties in the diaspora who are interested in investing in Uganda, either for rental purposes or to occupy when they come home to visit their families. So the opportunities are very, very many. Is it worth it? It's always worth it. Housing is a must. It's part of Maslow's needs. So yes, it's always worth it. In terms of rental income, you have to look and see which apartment that you buy, whether it's able to meet the rental yields or the yields that you're expecting as an investor. Is it able to meet your requirements in terms of paying back your facilities for those of us that borrow to buy? These are all the aspects that you have to look in to see if it's worth purchasing an apartment. But I agree with Verna. We have no choice. The land is not limitless. Yes, it is limited. So therefore, because we cannot go wide, we have to go up. Yes, most people will say, we were talking about it with Verna to say, Are you buying 60 kilometers from town? How long does it take you to come into the city to do work? What is the commuting time that is required? So you might say, oh, I'm going to invest, eventually, yes, maybe 60 kilometers out is around Ginger, 40 kilometers, 20 kilometers out, what can you afford at the end of the day? So if you don't want to spend 3 hours, our traffic, coming into work, looking at the quality of your life, how close you are to your child's school, how easy it is for you to go to a market and come back home, how long does it take you to get back home to even commune with your family members. If you're looking at all these aspects, you know very well that chances are you want to move as close to town as possible.
Yeah.
If the land is limited, we have to go up.
Yeah.
So condominiums are a must.
Yeah. Wow, thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing with us, the perspective of, a consultant, one who has actually been in the field. But the question then that rises from the picture you've painted, because you painted a very beautiful picture on the opportunities. So one wonders if there are indeed those opportunities, what are some of those challenges? Because as Verna mentioned and even Council mentioned in the beginning, this is not a new, undertaking. It's not a new subject in Uganda. All the way, from 2001 when we had the law, but also the regulations after that. So 23 years later, we are still having a conversation on, we need to get into regulations, we need to get into stimulating the market, we need to get into incentivizing, the investors to be able to, sort of navigate some of the risks that are involved, to be able to, create an environment that can attract them as well. So what are some of those challenges, those hurdles that we must overcome, whether it's on the end of the private sector or on the end of government as a regulator, to create an ecosystem in which condominium investments can thrive in Uganda? And then after that, I'll be able to come back to Verna and Council.
I'll speak for the typical buyer. The challenges, obviously, is being able to get value for money when you're paying for a condominium. I will stress that it is important that a typical buyer looks for professional advice before they undertake an investment of this stature. Whether you're buying your first home or whether you're a multi-home owner, you have to look for exactly what Deo said. First of all, you have to, I would urge that you visit an agent to give you a good scope of what the market is able to provide. Many times, I think when you're picking a property, other than the professionals that will help you in the actual purchasing process, you need to know what it is that you're looking for and how much is available in the market so that you can have a good comparable analysis on what you want to go for. So that's the first professional I would advise you to contact. Second, of course, when you've identified a property, is a valuer. After you've ascertained whether you're paying the right price for the property, you also have to contact the people who are in charge of building the property. So you have to talk to the architects. You have to talk to the surveyors so that you can open boundaries. I think you've covered all of this part. So the challenges are, you first have to identify the correct professionals to advising you accordingly, and obviously the banking professionals to look at, if you're borrowing, what the interest rates are and how much you're able to borrow or qualify for. The other hurdles that you can encounter is whether the market will be interested in taking up the product that you've bought. So why are you buying? You have to ask yourself these questions. Why are you buying this property? And what are you actually interested in achieving? And what your risk appetite is? Are you buying several units in one building? Are you looking at expanding your portfolio to minimize your risk? These are all those hurdles that you have to consider before you actually purchase. Also, because we have a lot of off-plan properties that are coming up, I think it's something that Ugandans have now adjusted to. I think if you look at the history of the condominium in Uganda, many times people were purchasing what they can actually see. But now off-plan sales are becoming commonplace, I would say. And a lot of investors are actually offering off-plan sales for several reasons. First of all, you can be able to stagger your payments over a longer period of time. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to come up with the right amount of money, or the full amount that is being required, then you can stagger your payment over a period of time. which means that you have to really pay attention to the construction as it's going up. You have to pay serious attention to what the developer is providing, other than the aesthetics, the flyers, the brochures, the way they sell. You as the buyer, you have to take time to ensure that what you're being offered in terms of the sale agreement is actually being met by the developer. So those are some of the hurdles that you'll have to go through as a typical buyer. As in regards to government and the regulators, I'll leave that to Verna to answer.
Right. Okay. Actually, I would like to bring back Verna on the aspect of sustainability, and I know Council Deo made mention of that in the beginning. And today I had the privilege of attending the CEO forum with him, and the theme really was One Earth. And that's it. We don't have any planet B. We just have this earth, and we must make the best out of it. And before I bring in architect Verna on, at the stage of designing these buildings, how far have we gone in embedding sustainability practices? Because I have the privilege of leading the department here at Kalikumutima on energy, environment, and sustainability. And when you look at the question of the built environment, for example, because environment is twofold. There is a natural environment as we have it, but also there's the built environment, and the two are inextricably intertwined, right? And we've seen the global discourse on, for example, energy efficiency. And elsewhere, it's a bigger conversation than it is here in Uganda, right? Yes, ESG, and not even just ESG, but at the individual level, adopting sustainability practices. And so one of them is through, building what we call green buildings, right? Buildings that are more energy efficient. For example, buildings that probably use natural light during the day and only use electricity or this kind of power. It's inevitable. When it comes to waste management as well, it's been and in the recent past, not even recent past, till now, we're still grappling with waste management issue, with especially in the wake of the Kaitesi disaster. And you find that it's been crazy. Now we are having a conversation on, okay, how can we manage waste better at source? Because that's where the true impact can be done. The segregation in the different components. Is it plastic? Is it biodegradable? Organic? Is it bottles or anything that can be recycled? So and there's so many other practices around energy efficiency, waste management, but also generally creating buildings that are green buildings that are again fit within the discourse we are having on environmental sustainability. So. And of course, as a firm, as Kalikumutima and Company Advocates, we are very passionate about environmental stewardship and governance. And we've been doing a lot of advocacy work. And actually, before this X-Space, we had an X-Space on the Kaitesi disaster, and we were looking at the role of the legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks and the gaps and what we need to do better, but also at a personal level, what steps can we take, be it at an entity level, or at a home level, or at individual level. What can we do to be part of the solution? So I would like to invite the architect to share with us, are they considering some of these best practices when it comes to the design of these buildings to ensure that they are eco-friendly?
Thank you. I may not answer the question about green buildings right now, because there's something that's which upsets me a lot, but I don't know. I would like to use this opportunity to talk about it. The way we develop our towns, our urban centers, is absolutely unsustainable. The urban sprawl that we have is absolutely unsustainable. So, we need to come closer. We have to have dense cities. Because like Uganda has one of the most fertile soils, but it's all now covered in concrete. We need to have dense settlements, and we leave the urban agriculture, green, to flourish as well. That's the angle in which I'll approach sustainability for now. All the others work, but I just wanted to talk about that. The challenge we have right now is that we are a developing country. when you look at the budget, the central government budget, they have a beautiful box and then they shade, maybe defense has the biggest box shaded. But if you look at the sector of urban development, it's a sliver. It's a very thin, you can't even miss it on the global. So, we are a developing country. That is why, okay? If you talk about sustainable development, we need to have dense settlements, which means that the infrastructure put in place is quite a lot. And you cannot expect a developer who is selling a unit to factor in the cost of infrastructure in that unit because it's exorbitant. I remember National Housing, they built the road from Ntinda to Nalia. They pulled electricity from Ntinda to Nalia, water. They built a lagoon. I can assure you that money didn't go in the houses because then they would have been unaffordable. So it was not a sustainable model. And we cannot go on like that. So when you talk about sustainability, for me, I think that there has to be something has to give. We have to stop this urban sprawl. It's just totally unsustainable. Of course, the way we develop, the way we manage our buildings, the way we manage the resources that we use has to be conscious about that. But for me, I think about it from the macro level. I mean, why do you travel from Namugongo to Kampala, to work, and spend what? How many hours on the pollution, just the fumes? I mean, it's crazy. We can't go on like this. And our urban cities are growing. Our urban population is growing. The whole population is growing. By 2060, will be 100 million Ugandans, half of whom will be in cities. So something has to give, and I just don't know where that change will begin. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, so that is what I can say. Now, condominiums help in densifying development so that you don't have these 1 acre plots and what. That's what makes the sprawl grow, because everybody's running away to have a bigger plot, and yeah, it's crazy. Condominiums can change this. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect Verna. And I agree with you because when you find the statistics about Uganda's population growth, be about maybe 3.2, percent, and the rate of urbanization being about twice that, 5.2 or so percent. So the statistics speak to the fact that condominiums are a timely solution or intervention. But one of the challenges that, of course, we've talked about is the question of cost, right? And I think Lucy made mention of the fact that there is a bit of everything or something for everyone, right? That if you're just looking for 1 bedroom, you can find it, 2 bedrooms or 3. But before I come back to Council Deo, just to hear from you, Lucy, what can we do to make housing more affordable? Because we've been talking about affordable housing, but how affordable are condominiums? And what can we do either locally or regionally? What interventions can we have to ensure that we're not just creating housing, but that the housing is actually affordable housing? Because you might find that we have the structures or we have the condominiums coming up, but the market, the purchasing power, I mean, if the Ugandan economy, the question of purchasing power, right? So how can we create an environment within which, yes, we can see traction in condominium investments, but also ensure that they're not just sprouting up, but they're, in a sense, affordable to meet the needs of the growing population?
That is a bit of a challenge. It's not something that can be answered quite easily, mostly because you look at the pricing of land and how much you have to put in. Verna has already explained how the infrastructure, how much of the infrastructure has to go into creating affordable housing in a decent location or in a location that is, desired by the market. It is a very serious challenge because you look at your cost of construction, you look at the amenities that I've mentioned earlier. if you look at the profit margins, the developer, because the developer is not doing this for free. The developer is a businessman. He has to make a profit. So if you look at the amount that goes into developing, how much they intend to sell at, for the developer for it to be worth it for the developer, they have to put in a very high population dense project for it to make financial sense. Now, when you look at the desirability for what the market is interested in, most people will start saying to you, I don't want to live in a development that is, but you want to pay, what dare I say, some of the prices, I don't know, 100 million maybe. If you're looking at whatever income stream that somebody has, 100 million, for a developer to give you a product at 100 million shillings, he has to put, maybe 100 units minimum. So it's a challenge. It would require a level of charity almost. They would have to get the land free.
I wouldn't call it charity. It's subsidy.
It's subsidy.
Yeah.
It's subsidy. But if you look at a developer, just to look at it, because we've worked for developers, I've worked for a developer, and for it to make financial sense, you have to look at, a very, very low priced land.
Which is far away.
Which is far, far away. There are opportunities. There are developers that are considering. There are some which I dare not mention, but that are actually considering doing or have started to do affordable housing in areas where the land has been acquired, significantly long time ago for it to be able. So these are the challenges. So even the word affordable, what does affordable mean? What does affordable housing mean? What price are we actually talking about? Can a university student get a graduate get a mortgage? Can they afford to get a mortgage? What is the starting salary for a typical university graduate? These are the questions that have to be answered before we can start talking about affordable housing. So it's a challenge, and I think there are many professionals that are discussing the same to try and see whether it's possible. But yeah, I could just say it's a challenge for now.
Great, thank you so much, Lucy. And you see, your response just reminds me some weeks, about maybe a fortnight or so ago, I was reading about the development trajectory and history of Singapore, between 1965 and 2000, and housing was at the heart of the development agenda, right? To the point that it became a government policy that they worked with their social sort of protection to give them a 20% head start. So you'd pay at the 20% as sort of down payment, and then you can pay the rest of the amount that you'd have paid for the housing in the next or subsequent 20 years, but you're already in occupation. Because government was very intentional, because it recognized the vitalness, the importance, the critical contribution of housing to stability. Because imagine a Kampala where people do not have housing and sustainable housing at that, the kind of chaos. So you find that many of them, of course, are going to go into encroaching on the forests, encroaching on the on the wetlands. It has a ripple effect, right? So government was very intentional that it, in a way to stimulate the market, it worked with the private sector, with and I would like maybe to hear on from the architect's perspective before I come back to council on the role maybe of the public-private partnerships, or even just partnerships across the board with the different players, with the different investors or different developers, to ensure that we sort of explore those synergies that we can explore to ensure that we deal with the issue of affordability. If you realize that many of the challenges we have in the global south that are development related have a huge genesis or a great deal in the question of affordability. We talked about we talk about the energy transition, and here at Kalikumutima we've done some advocacy work in that regard and some research, and we know that regardless of what alternative you're bringing on board, you must address the issue of affordability. The Ugandan market, not even just Ugandan market, the global South market, all the choices that we make, a huge component of all, a great deal of those choices is really made based on affordability. If it's a choice between, in my regard, to use either charcoal, for example, or to use LPG or electricity, consumers don't really ask themselves in the first place of, which one is more eco-friendly? And I'll go with that. It's okay, of all these alternatives, which one can I afford, right? So in your perspective or in your opinion, Verna, how can we probably get government to be more intentional in this regard, but also to be able to sort of initiate or be able to be open to public-private partnerships? So we see investments coming from government, but also coming from the private sector to probably even undertake some joint projects. And I know we've seen some housing projects being undertaken by NSSF. I think in Lubowa, we've seen some housing projects being undertaken, I think by Buganda, I think I think that's Mirembe Villas, I think. Yeah, so we've seen some partnerships and collaborations coming in, well, resources, which could be financial or even, expertise-wise, but also, to pull resources together to address a common challenge. So how can we sort of champion or propagate this kind of collaboration across the board, Verna? Then I'll come back to Council on the question of value for money, but also I know that there might be, some buyers online who are aggrieved already, they've probably been defrauded, and they're wondering, okay, I've had what should have been done that was not done, and here I am. What remedy can I find? And I'll be inviting Council ultimately to just shed some more light on that. I know he mentioned already the issue of value for value for money, but that would be very important to emphasize that. And just a reminder to our listeners, please do prepare some questions to our speakers, and I'll be inviting you after Council Deo submission to just ask your question, and I'm sure that our able panel will be able to respond accordingly. And of course, as Council Deo mentioned in the beginning, the conversation is going to continue on our social media platforms. We're going to keep creating spaces like this to create some more awareness, create some clarity on some of the most critical issues, some of the challenges that our people are facing. Because as he mentioned, we are here to serve, we're here to contribute solutions, because we are alive to the fact that we must have context-sensitive approaches to our services, but also to ensure that we keep that relevance in light of the market as we have it. So I'd like to invite Verna to just share again in light of the question as we have it. Verna.
Okay. First of all, the definition of affordability. What makes a house or housing affordable? Imagine you earn 1 million shillings. You shouldn't spend more than 300,000 on rent or mortgage, utilities, water, electricity, gas, and transport to your workplace. So, for the place you're living in, for it to be affordable, you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your income on rent, utilities, and transport to and from work. If you're spending more than that, you're not in an affordable house. Now, we cannot run away from the idea of subsidy, because infrastructure is so expensive. Actually, it's the most expensive part of housing, not the building. So I'm just saying that we're in a developing country. We have very many priorities. I normally sympathize with the budget makers because there are too many needs and too little money. So, but something has to be done somehow. Subsidies. If infrastructure is subsidized, that the person is only paying for the structure, most likely the price would go down by even half, I think, really. And even if we have more affordable housing finance, because currently, if you borrow 1 million, after the length of your stay, you'd probably have paid back like 2.5 million for every million you borrow, because of the length of the mortgage. So even affordable financing should or even subsidized of sorts. Another thing that has to be clear is that housing is not a function of central government. No, it is not. You go to the Local Government Act, look at the functions of central government. Housing is not a function of central government. It's a function of local government. So it's the local governments in each and every local government that they have to answer this question. But where do they get the money from? Where would they get the money from? Property tax. That's the only place, personally, I discovered that they can get money for physical planning and maybe infrastructure development in the area.
Property rates.
Property tax, yes. So, in a nutshell, our housing can only be affordable if the cost of infrastructure is not loaded on the price of the house. How that is done is a whole big debate, given our situation, our economy. Yeah, that is it, really. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, Architect Verna. So clearly, because the local governments cannot then raise, the colossal amounts of money that are requisite for investment in condominiums, that means that then the private sector, private individuals or private investors then need to embrace, that opportunity and be able to probably, work hand in hand with local governments to ensure that. Yes. Okay, great. Right, so I would like to welcome back Councillor Deo Kalikumutima to share with us the remedies that are available given the legal, regulatory, and institutional framework as we have it to an aggrieved buyer. Council, you're most welcome, and also on the issue of value for value, which is very important, just to re-emphasize that point. Council, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Howard, and the ladies. Very wonderful discourse. Now, like I said earlier, we must emphasize the role of professionals. Because if you do it right, then I guess you don't need these remedies. But many a times, even when we do things right, push comes to shove, you must go bare knuckle. So in our scenario that I alluded to earlier, we had a petition. That is an administrative intervention. So we do have administrative interventions. In our scenario, we petitioned the IGG. Some developers, owners petitioned the Minister of State for housing. Some even petitioned the Speaker of Parliament. But are these avenues enough to give you legal redress? They may not be, because the last I checked, if you want compensation, I know the IGG does have mandate under the law, but they do not have the mandate to make compensatory orders. Now, for these, you need recourse to courts of judicature. But I must also note, and I thank God that now we do have alternative dispute resolution. I hope it's not abused. Many agreements or purchase agreements have dispute resolution clauses, and they do provide for arbitration. Arbitration is less adversarial compared to the formal conventional litigation, though more conventional or formal than negotiation and mediation, but it's usually a quick remedy. But if the dispute resolution clause in the agreement does not provide for arbitration, and it provides for recourse to court, then you must immediately engage your attorney, though even in the case of arbitration you need an attorney anyway. You must engage them to enable you get the necessary redress. Better you engage them when you're getting into this transaction. It becomes easier to manage. So we do have the administrative interventions, but we also have the other legal processes. I don't know whether architect Verna would like to tell us whether the condominium laws provide for penal sanctions. There are issues. The last time I checked, you're also a lawyer. Are there issues of strict liability, or is that a gap in the Condominium Act and the regulations there under? One thing that I have noted with land laws, many actually do provide for these statutory offenses, but prosecution of the same is a challenge. We do have also a challenge of implementation. We do have a challenge of execution, because I believe in some of these scenarios it's actually clear fraud. So you do not only seek civil redress, but also criminal. You can actually initiate criminal proceedings. And indeed, in the unfortunate scenarios that we have had, we have advised many of our clients to try alternative dispute resolution, that is by way of negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. But if that fails, many are going to seek civil redress, and maybe criminal redress too. Punitive action is to put things right. Is it necessary? Yes. Is it the only solution? No. But now we have no choice. We're not just coming out to send a message. No. We need a permanent solution to this dilemma. Allow me quickly also touch the issue of housing in the value chain that architect Mbabazi talked about. And this is in regard to the question of sustainability. Housing where a condominium falls is a very key aspect. We have all discussed that. But it is more key than many of us think, like she told you. The time you spend going to Mukono, the fumes emitted. Now, if we have condominiums in the city center, less fumes, right? But there are also other benefits. Employment. Yes, out of this industry. Sources of government revenue. Habitation, people will live in these, to mention but a few. Supply chain, sourcing of raw materials. The housing discussion needs to be taken seriously. Because housing, the housing sector, the real estate sector, condominiums, are very key. That is why I believe this discussion is even part of the National Development Plan, infrastructure development. Yes. So we should take this discussion seriously and understand that it goes well beyond government. It comes down to the Howards of this world, to the Mbabazis, to the Lucy's, and to the Deos. We need to take this discussion seriously, because if we do, we are talking sustainability, we are talking competitive advantage, we are talking optimal utilization of resources, to mention but a few. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Deo, on that. And I agree with you entirely, because in our NDP3, even Uganda's Vision 2040, housing is at the heart. It's a critical component, because once you have a growing population at 3.2%, then you're certainly going to, eventually have a population surge or explosion at one point that you need to, be mindful of or be cognizant of in your planning as well. And so, one of the reasons or the rationale behind our conversation this evening, as we start to land the plane, is to really create, some sort of awareness on the, subject of condominium investment or condominiums generally, as we have them, because there's been so many misconceptions, in Uganda, but also, across the globe. It's something that many people grapple to understand, that you can own a unit, but you do not own the building. That there are certain amenities, certain spaces that you share with other people, and that you're not renting it, or where there's that option, but that you're actually owning that unit. It's something that is like it baffles many people in Uganda, but also like the understanding of you can actually own an apartment without owning the building, and you're not renting it, but it belongs to you. You even have, because it belongs to you, you have a certificate of title to that effect, right? And so you find that many people do not understand that concept, and so you find that many still prefer they would rather go maybe 10, 20 kilometers away from where they work, as opposed to, just owning that unit. But where the world is going, and I think Architect Verna mentioned it, the kind of, the density that we need to have in that regard. And I mentioned Singapore, and they also had that kind of approach, but you find that in simulating the market, you'll be surprised how much awareness needs to be created. And at Kalikumutima and Company, we are committed to demystifying, to debunking some of the myths in matters law, policy, and institutional frameworks, but also on matters sustainable development, because sustainability must be mainstreamed in everything we are doing. And so wherever you are, and this goes to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to us, in everything that you do, you must realize that the discussion on sustainability, it starts with us. We must take, that kind of first step. We talk about the complex, aspects on sustainability, but the actual steps are going to be taken at the basis, but also by individuals. And we've been talking about one of the aspects has been on waste management, and this really just fits in the grander scheme in our country. But that issue it does not begin with government, right? It begins with us, the kind of practices that we have, and the preferences we have as individuals, but also as entities, where we are. So, ladies and gentlemen,
but we are the government.
Oh, yeah, actually, yes.
Representatives, but we
actually, yes. That's very true. So you find that ultimately our goal is to debunk some of those myths, but also to inspire us to action, whatever action we can take, however small that the steps might seem. The idea really is that if we all did little, we'd certainly do much collectively. So at this juncture, would like to, in the interest of time, would like to give our speakers just a minute or so to just share with us their parting shots, because we've really overshot our time. And I would like to begin with Architect Verna, and I'll invite Lucy after that, and then Council will close on the side of the panel, and then I'll be back to close on my end. Architect Verna, you're most welcome to share with us your parting shots in light of the discussion.
Yeah, from the building professional point of view, let's build right to begin with, and let's create proper titles. But condominium living is a whole topic. When the house is built and sold, and you now living together, it's also another good discussion.
Thank you so much, Architect Verna, and thank you so much for sharing with us insights, again, from the architectural perspective. I'd like to invite Lucy, and Lucy, as I mentioned, is a property consultant with a great deal of experience, and she has shared her insights and the perspective of a property consultant, which have been very insightful. I'd like to thank her for that and invite her to share with us the parting shots.
Okay, my parting shots really are to the people who have invested and that are disappointed with the developers. I would like to encourage you not to give up, because there are quite a number of reputable developers out there, regardless of the experience that you may have gone through where you are dissatisfied. I'd like to urge you to make sure that you understand the market, understand what is available on the market. Take the time to look for as many developments as you can to understand what the best investment plan for you should be. Consult experts. Consult people who know the market. Find out, who the best people are to introduce you to what the market has to offer. do a comparative analysis of what is available on the market. When you buy a property, you should treat it the way you would treat your own personal residence, even if it's for investment purposes. So don't forget, as much as you own your condominium wall to wall, you're also a shareholder in the homeowners association. Yeah. I agree with Verna, this is an entirely different topic of discussion. Ugandans don't like paying condominium fees. Your condominium fees, if priced correctly or calculated or budgeted correctly, should have a buffer amount to be able to maintain the common areas. You should be able to raise the money for the swimming pool that you want if the developer didn't give it to you. You should be able to fix your roof, you should be able to paint, you should be able to pay for security and all the other things that go with condominium living. It is a very, very big discussion, which if you are willing to host it, I would love to take part in as well. I would like to say that investing is not 100% foolproof. Every investment has risk. You just have to ascertain what your risk appetite is. I keep on saying to all of the Ugandans out there in the diaspora that are coming through, if you're interested in buying multiple properties, diversify. One developer may not get it right, the other one might. Look at the different opportunities in different financial niches. If the affordable market is not working for you, try the prime. Because the prime market developers are doing really, really well and actually giving value for money. Off-plan purchases, pay close attention. Off-plan is the way to go. The onus is on us as Ugandan people to put our developers to task to give value for money. So you have to be careful when you're investing off-plan. Yes, it will give you the opportunity to stagger your payments. Yes, it will give you the opportunity to pick the best unit on the block. But it also allows you to ask the right questions. And if you don't know how to ask the right questions, employ the people, your lawyers, your representatives, your occupier representatives who can help you with this choice and who can take on a legal perspective, what the developers have to offer. That's my parting shot.
Wow, thank you so much, Lucy. I would like to also add that I think it goes back to the question of due diligence, right? But also, I would like to imagine that an ordinary buyer might not have the keen eye to ask all the questions that must be asked. And I think that goes back to what Councillor Deo was talking about in the beginning, engaging the professionals who have been doing this for the longest time, who know what needs to be done. And for example, here we have architect Verna, we have Lucy, who is a property consultant, and Councillor Deo himself. All these in their different rights are professionals in this regard. And so you need to seek the services of a professional so they can guide you, because you find that there's so many requirements that must be met. And many of them are actually, fatal in a way that you find that if you do not fulfill them, then at one point, your ownership is going to be questioned, and you might actually end up, losing, your ownership, but also losing money in that regard. So, and of course, going into some of the dispute resolution mechanisms or some of the mechanisms that Councillor Deo mentioned, some of which actually require further expenditure, because if you find that you're going to even spend more, you've lost money already, and then you also need to pursue mechanisms for redress, many of which might actually require you to spend more. So, as Councillor Deo mentioned, you need to believe and you need to come to the appreciation that prevention is indeed better than cure, right? And so I think that will be it. We've overshot, but the conversation was very insightful, and I would like to thank my very able panel. Thank you so much, Architect Verna. You did the questions justice, and for sharing with us the insights as well from your experience as an architect, and also Lucy as well. Thank you so much as a consultant in this field. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives with us. It's been very, very insightful, and I'm more than certain that the audience has benefited, myself as well, getting to hear your perspectives and sharing your insights with us. Thank you so much. But also our host, Councillor Deo Kalikumutima, as the moderator today. Really, I was just exercising delegated powers. I would like to thank Councillor Deo as well for his commitment to the cause, because, as you know, he was part of the the party that undertook the inspection, on behalf of the diaspora owners. But we know that this conversation cannot stop here. It must continue. We have initiated the conversation, and we are committed to continue with the conversation, not only in condominium investments, but also on other aspects, on the environment, on energy, on sustainability, but also on land rights, on tax, on intellectual property. There's so many things that, of pertinence, and our commitment really is to contribute our part to creating awareness, to stimulating the discourse, but also to engaging stakeholders on our end to ensure that we create an ecosystem in which Ugandans can have that sense that this is indeed our country and can be able to enjoy the country in one way or the other. And we strongly believe that if we all did little, we would ultimately achieve much. And that is our message, that we need to take steps individually. We need to take steps wherever we are, to even sometimes the first step could be seeking help, not dying in silence, to seek help should you be aggrieved. And our doors at Kalikumutima are always open. You can come and we'll be able to find solutions to many of these development issues or property ownership, whatever it is that is legal, institutional, regulatory, to ensure that we're able to find solutions in that regard. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. It's been an amazing evening. It's been very insightful. The depth of the discussion, oh my God, it's been amazing. And I'd like to thank you for setting aside time to join us. I request you to keep on the lookout. We'll be continuing the conversation, as I've intimated, on the different aspects that I'm confident and certain will be of interest to you. So at this juncture, I'd like to bring this conversation to an end, and I would like to pray that the good Lord will watch over you and continue to supply your need as well, and to grant you what your heart desires, but also to be able to ensure that on our end we're also guided to be able to address some of those issues that are very close to you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Kalikumutima and Company Advocates, translating visions into reality. For more information, visit our website www.kalikumutima.com.